after serving as a Republican congressman from South Carolina. Bob Inglis created the Energy and Enterprise Initiative located at George Mason University in Northern Virginia, focused on conservative, free enterprise solutions to energy and climate challenges. He now serves as executive director of Republican, and that's with an E-N, republican.org. We welcome him now back to Bloomberg. So, Congressman, thanks so much for being back with us. First of all, tell us about this new venture. At least it's new to me.
Oh, yes. Well, it's republicen.org. That's EN for energy, entrepreneurship, environment. The idea, David, is to solve climate change through the fastest force on the planet, which is free enterprise innovation.
So to be clear, and we've talked about this before, I find it interesting, you accept that we've got a climate problem and there's something needs to be done about it. The question is how we go about it, and you believe there are free enterprise ways of doing this rather than having it come top down from the government.
Right, and there are basically three ways to solve climate change. You can regulate emissions. That's not so attractive to us as conservatives. That's a regulatory approach. The problem, even if we weren't conservatives, is you can't regulate Chinese emissions. So that's a problem right there. Second approach is to incentivize clean energy. If I were still in Congress, I'd probably be voting for some of those incentives. But I'd have to admit that some of them won't be affordable in the rest of the world. They're affordable in rich America, but not in the rest of the world. So you're not really yet solving the problem of climate change. Third approach is to simply price in the negative effects of burning fossil fuels and negative externalities, and then watch the free enterprise system solve this faster than any government mandates or regulations or fickle tax incentives could imagine. Particularly, David, because you would make this, you'd do a border adjustment. So you'd collect the tax on entry of goods from countries that don't have the same price on carbon dioxide, making it in their interest to follow our lead, and then you get the whole world in. And that's when you get solutions to climate change.
And as far as I know, you correct me if I'm wrong, President Biden has not yet adopted that border adjustment tax, but he has made noises that sort of suggest he might be open to that. Would it create a lot of trade frictions with our trading partners, certainly in Europe and, yes, in China as well? It could really hurt China, right?
Well, in case of the EU, they may act before we do, and that would be a terrible thing. But that's for us to follow the lead of the EU. I'd rather be leading this rather than following. And in the case of China, I think there's some indication that they may actually find this acceptable, that some sort of a pricing in of the negative effects is something that they could deal with. And I think we've got to assume, even though, it's a communist regime and all that, even if you're one of those repressive Chinese leaders, you've got a spouse maybe and maybe a child, and they can't go out and play soccer because the air is so foul. And that spouse is probably chewing on your ear. So it makes it so that I think we can assume they've got a felt need to act, just as we do. But they got to figure out a way to make it work economically, and that's why I think you hear so many major companies saying, please just price in the negative effects. Don't try to regulate our business. Don't give us fickle tax incentives. Just price it in. We'll take care of the rest.
It's fascinating. At the same time, if you do have this pricing in, there's a carbon tax, there's a border adjustment tax, where does the money go? Does it go into the public fisc, just into the Treasury, or do you take that money and plow it back in to climate initiatives?
Well, that's my preference would be to return it to the citizenry, either in the form of a dividend or in corresponding tax cuts. The tax cut that I would choose is the payroll tax. The FICA tax that is quite regressive, really hurts poor people. And a carbon tax by itself is regressive and hurts poor people. But if you reduce the FICA...
In 2 miles, take exit 41B for I-80 West toward Delaware Water Gap.
Improved a lot of poor people in America because they have a tax that they could avoid by turning down the thermostat, and they'd have a fuller paycheck. Or dividend the money from the carbon tax back to the citizenry. That also addresses the problem of regressivity of a naked carbon tax.
Let's take this and put it in the current, current like as in today agenda, and talk a bit about Joe Manchin, the senator from West Virginia,